Welcome back to yet another epic segment. My guess is that you found yourself hearing news of a multi-trillion loss battle, and you're hoping that the most semi-reliable reporter in all of New Eden was there. After a grueling and staggering 17-hour battle with preparation of 5 hours beforehand, we sat there on grid from the moment it all started to the moment it all ended. The Imperium's war against WinterCo opened with a brutal first clash. To give a quick brief before we kick things off, the Imperium set its sights on the system of ATIOTH, a key staging system for WinterCo, right on the edge of their territory in the region of Geminate. In a bold move, the Imperium dropped a keepstar, effectively daring WinterCo to respond. Hours before the fight even began, the Imperium prepared, with thousands of pilots flooding the grid. The system strained and nearly buckled and broke. But with these astonishing numbers, a new world record was set, with over 10,000 pilots in a single system. And then, the system started to crack. The Imperium deployed waves of carriers, their fighters spilling into space like a swarm, saturating the grid. But WinterCo didn't answer with brute force. They answered with something quieter, something far more insidious. A remarkable piece of machine, one used for newer pilots to gain their footing as they set their goals in New Eden. Alone, it's not much of a threat, but in numbers, overwhelming. It was none other than the Vexor. In a familiar tactic as we saw with Pandemic Horde, where they Zerg rushed an Imperium Keepstar with nothing but cheap, small ships and securing the win, this was a similar attack. Drones were deployed in the thousands, clinging to the structure, refusing to let go. At least, that was the plan they had. Because once the command was given for the thousands of Vexors to deploy their drones, it overloaded the grid, causing the system to crash and kicking everyone out. Pilots were cut off, cast out of the system entirely. Others clawed their way back in, only to be met with darkness, black screens, frozen commands, ships that no longer responded. With nearly half of the Imperium's forces gone, and only a fraction of those remaining able to actually fight, the field was no longer contested. It was exposed. WinterCo didn't hesitate, because in some cruel twist of the cluster, there was no issue for pilots coming from another system. So, while the Imperium struggled to even log in and get back on grid, WinterCo continued to pour in, turning the advantage into their favor. After the Keepstar fell, it became a hunt. Targets were picked off one by one, not through brute force, but through inevitability. The great hulls of New Eden, once dominant on grid, were reduced to easy prey, and it was only a matter of time before they followed the structure into destruction. Fingers began to point. Accusations spread across comms and channels alike. The Imperium blamed for pushing the system past its limits, attempting to break it to secure the field, only for it to turn against them. WinterCo, in turn, accused of doing the same, weaponizing the instability to shatter the timer and cast thousands out of the fight. But in the end, it didn't matter who pulled the trigger. What mattered was the result. The Imperium, left exposed, no longer able to fully respond, had only a handful of pilots still capable of acting, forced to defend those who could not. And as WinterCo continued to pour into the system, the balance shifted beyond recovery. Titans and supers were picked apart one by one, their power meaningless against a grid that no longer answered. What was meant to be a heavily contested battlefield had become something else entirely. A death sentence. Now, as many of you know, we're known for our cinematics, but with destruction on this scale, even our camera systems began to buckle under the strain. So we adapted, compromising where we had to, just to capture something that could be preserved and shown. Without further ado, we take you straight into the aftermath, beginning just moments after the Keepstar fell. So, sit back and enjoy the show, because this is Warlock Industries, providing semi-reliable cinematics and mildly accurate reporting, straight from the front line. During the Keepstar engagement, the grid became so unstable that the Imperium was unable to even load the structure's core. Pilots were left trapped, staring into blank screens, their ships unresponsive, while control of the field slipped away. WinterCo knew it. With the system fractured, they understood that jumping into ATIOTH from outside would remain largely unaffected. So they moved in without hesitation, exploiting the instability and tightening their grip on a battlefield where one side could no longer properly fight back. After nearly 2/3 of the battle being fought under these conditions, WinterCo made their decision. They pulled the trigger. With the advantage firmly in their hands, and the knowledge that they could enter the system safely, they decided to overwhelm the grid with hundreds of dreadnoughts and titans, wave after wave, tearing through ship after ship. The Imperium, with only a handful of responsive pilots and assets, did what they could. Titans that were still functional returned fire, and whatever dreads could be fielded were thrown into the defense. And for a moment, it was a fight. But it didn't last. With much of the Imperium's capital force still trapped, unresponsive, unable to act, WinterCo committed their own titans, sealing the outcome. What followed was no longer a battle, but a bloodbath. By the end, over 9 trillion ISK had been destroyed, with more than 30 titans lost on the Imperium side alone. The battle dragged on until the cluster shut down, bringing everything to an abrupt and silent end. And as the dust settles, the Imperium is already moving forward, with plans to anchor 2 additional Keepstars, making one thing clear: this is far from over. Just when it seemed the cluster couldn't descend any further into madness, at the very moment the Keep Star met its end, another war was raging on. In Turner, a faction fortizar, one held close by many, came under siege, with dreadnoughts and titans once again carving their mark across the system. But that is a story for another time. As always, this is Warlock Industries, providing cinematic battles and semi-reliable reporting straight from the front lines.